Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1329 of our daily content grind. So today it's time for another debate, which means we're going to look at the last one and see what the results were. And I'm actually kind of surprised. So a lot of you did not go traditional. It's like a 70-30 split essentially, where you say that, yeah, like Starscream should have some redeeming quality to him. Or at the very least should have some story element where he could potentially be redeemed. There's some very interesting Starscreams out there who fall under this category. Armada, IDW, Season 1 Earthrise. And yeah, they do tend to make more compelling characters. And there is something, but that doesn't take away from the fact that like G1 animated and your more traditional Starscreams are like still very entertaining to watch. But yeah, I'm actually happy to hear that a lot more of you than I was expecting actually liked the layers. And I like the layers to my Starscream as well. So good on you. Good on you. I'm actually happy with that result. I was worried that would be a little bit more of a split. But as long as we are looking at the traditional versus the modern, and with the original depiction versus, the new idea, I thought, let's go with the other major character. If I did one on the Decepticon side, only fair of me to do one on the Autobot side, right? So today, I'm asking you essentially the same question. And this time, it is Bumblebees. So this time, it's a little bit more simple. It's not about, like, oh, do you want to have a redemption story to Bumblebee? No. That's not necessary. That don't work. Instead, we are going to be discussing the two facets of Bumblebee that stand out more than any other. And that is the original G1 depiction of the Scout and the modern depiction of the Warrior. So, which is it for you? Is it the Scout or the Warrior? And this time, instead of bopping back and forth, let's just do like one big character examination. And then for everyone who kind of goes for in the middle, I'll do like a little lightning round at the end of like, okay, yeah, there's some exceptions. There's some other things here. So, the original 84 Bumblebee. Now, the character itself is, it's a character that kind of transcended the expectations. You recall the friend, the Autobot friend to the humans was originally going to be Hound, but for whatever reason, call it early toy sales, call it test marketing success, Bumblebee was the one that won out. So they shift gears. Hound does not get to be Spike's best friend anymore as originally intended. Nope, it's going to be Bumblebee. He's now the kid appeal. And you know what? Yeah, I can kind of see why. I can see why in a lot of different facets, So feel bad for Hound, but also we gained something special in the fandom because this was a character that transcended popularity. It is one of only a handful of toys that were produced for the first 3 years of the Transformer brand. The only other ones would be Starscream and Soundwave. That would make Bumblebee one of the best-selling Transformers of the original toy line. That's something of an accomplishment, and that is worth pointing out. However, let's kind of deep dive here. Okay, so different facets of the Bumblebee that we know as the Scout is, character-wise, like, if you're used to like the combat style, like the big action, high intensity style Transformers, this one might be a little bit disappointing. Bumblebee's role was the Scout. He was the one who tried to sneak in, thanks to his small size, tiny little round compact car. He could get in, find out what's going on, get out. Sometimes it got him into trouble, but that was the intention behind Bumblebee as a character, as his role amongst the Autobot ranks. The thing a lot of people forget about the role of a Scout is it does take a lot of courage and a lot of bravery in order to put yourself in those dangerous situations, knowing full well you are outmanned and outgunned if anything goes wrong. So in that, Bumblebee does take on an incredibly important role, and he performs it, for the most part, very, very well. And because he is more of a non-combatant. Yes, he does have a firearm. He does join in on a fight, but he is not like the action movie hero type where he's going to go in guns a-blazing and he's going to be the only one walking out of this Decepticon base. Not really that character. No, he's far more gentle. He's a lot more hands-off, maybe some quick quips here and there, but for the most part, he is not like the main hero type. But that's one reason why he makes such a good ally and friend to the human cast, because he's a little bit closer to them as a result. He's not completely lost in the war. He is not, he doesn't have to be on the front line. So, like, he can be friends with Spike and everybody else, all the human cast, and it kind of works out. He just comes across, because of his role in the war, he comes across friendlier than most of your average Autobots. Now, they're all friendly to a degree, but let's be honest, Bumblebee more than most. That's his role, though. And something that I think that's important, a lot of people forget, is like how he bonds and how he connects to the audience. And I feel like that's because of his connection to Optimus Prime. The defining trait of the original Bumblebee is the fact that he is trying to prove himself to Optimus Prime. And I feel like that's where he really becomes the kid appeal character, because we've all kind of gone through that. As a kid, there's always someone above you that you are trying to impress. If it is, if you're the bookworm in school, it is going to be the teacher. But it might be your dad or mom. It might be a big brother or sister. It might be that cool kid 2 grades higher that for some reason like knows you and like you really want to be like them. And you really want to be the cool kid like them. We've all been through this. This is a universal experience, and it's a universal experience we have even at a very young age. It's one of the very first universal experiences that any of us has, and it's not something that ages. We all go through that, no matter what age you are. This, I feel like that, that trying to win Prime's approval is really what drove so many to connect to Bumblebee in the first place. Though that said, I'm sure design aesthetic had something to do with it too. I feel that it is worth mentioning. Yellow's been proven to be a very gender neutral color. It's not like a blue, red, pink, or purples that, tend to have a gender lean, which I think is outdated at this point, but this was the 80s. But it's a test audience thing. You want to know why so many kid appeal characters are yellow? It's because yellow seems to be a color that's universally enjoyed. So they go with yellow a lot. And it works here too. And it does help that Bumblebee does keep this cute, round, aesthetic to him. He's not as sharp-edged or hard-looking as a lot of the other Autobots are. He looks friendly. He should be the kid appeal. He should be the friend of the humans. He just looks the part. So yeah, aesthetics are definitely playing a role in this as well. So I feel like that's worth mentioning. The thing about this archetype is that you really don't see it very much anymore. I mean, they put a spin on it for Transformers Animated, though I do feel like that Bumblebee was trying to come off a lot cooler, but still ends up in that same small, combat ineffective bot who has to be much more clever in how he goes about things. So we evolve that type, but it's still kind of rooted in what the original Bumblebee did. And every now and then that Bumblebee does come back around, especially any kind of the retro depictions in comic books. But there is the opposing side of this. There is the Warrior. This, I feel like the debate itself is going to be generational. If you grew up with the original Bumblebee, whether that's G1, Generation 2, or even if you were just a Netflix kid and happened to be on, or maybe Transformers Animated to a lesser degree. However, if you grew up on the Michael Bay movies or any of the more modern Transformer cartoons, Bumblebee as the action hero, like that young, confident, powerful warrior who can actually back up his bravado. You know that Bumblebee. Well, guess what? 07's kind of the first time we had that. I think this is another reason why this character hit as hard as it hit. I don't think it's just the fact that, oh, hey, we have Bumblebee back for the first time since, 1986. I think it's more than that, I think it's that he just hit a niche that Transformers, for some reason, never really had. And that's a little unfair. It's a little unfair, but also completely fair. Hot Rod was this one. No one in the 84 85 cast really fits the bill. You might make an argument for someone like Sideswipe, but he doesn't come across as a young warrior and is a little more aggressive than a Bumblebee type. And he loses more fights than he wins. Action hero Bumblebee doesn't lose a lot of fights. But we kind of got that with Hot Rod. And we got it for the movie, but after the movie, that went away because Rodimus Prime took over. We lost that young hotshot character in exchange for the fresh and finding himself leader. Upgrade, downgrade, I'll let you decide what that ended up being. But point is, we only got him for a few episodes of the actual cartoon. Just a couple times where he lost the Matrix. Or just gave it up. Because that's Hot Rod. We kind of got close on Chetor. But I feel like Chetor, actually, even though he does have the confidence I'm looking for, he doesn't have the battle prowess. And I am looking at the fact that he is still there trying to win the approval of Optimus. And he does still act more as a scout type character. So I do feel like he leans closer to the 80s Bumblebee rather than the 07 Bumblebee. But the archetype is starting to form. The one who actually nailed it, the only one we got for real, that'd be Nightcream. He is young, brash, confident. Like, this is the action hero type. It's unfortunate he is terribly designed, and he is written to be a Mary Sue who gets away with everything, has all these extra abilities to him, immediately invaluable to the main team, gets to transform without having to work for it like everybody else. All of that. So we tend to ignore Nightcream, but let's admit that's the closest to this the Transformers got before the 07 movie. And seeing Bumblebee on screen is super cool like that, right? Now, we do have to get by the fact that I'm not going with the portrayal of like, oh, he's mute. That's not part of this. I'm going for character personality and just archetype. And yeah, he is the action movie hero. He goes into the battle with all the ego and confidence in the world, but he usually backs it up. And it is made very clear that, yeah, for the Autobot, he's on the young side. So yeah, the thing is, like, I feel like where Bumblebee from the original cartoon can connect to an audience because he's relatable, this one connects because he's just really cool at what he's doing. Now, this archetype is kind of taken over. Just about everything Bumblebee these days leans more toward the 07, and that's largely because the movies for 10 years were incredibly popular and successful. There was no way not to recognize Bumblebee the way he looked in 2007. So you end up with a long line of Bumblebees who kind of take this approach. They stand upright. They stand more upright. They don't have that dumpy shape to them. They carry themselves more as a big hero rather than, the young Autobot who's trying to find his way. And that's just kind of overtaken. This design in general has kind of overtaken Bumblebee for years now. To the point where that is just the default. And I feel like something got lost there. Whereas I will admit, the original Bumblebee isn't as cool of a character. He doesn't fit the vibe of the show where everything is kind of about this, 9 million year old war that everyone's been fighting. He's just relatable. He's connectable in that way. But Bumblebee since then have tried to be the really cool character, like the really cool hero. And that does connect to people too, in the same way that, like, Superman gets super popular, Batman gets super popular. I can't really relate to them because of their situations and abilities, but that doesn't mean they aren't cool. I think Superman's not cool for a lot of other reasons, but you know what? Bad example. Batman's cool. I can't relate to super rich boy who lost his parents. I can't relate to that. I can think that he's very, very cool. And that also connects sometimes. Now, and ultimately, I do like them both. I will admit, I like both the Scout and I like the Warrior. They both work out for the character, and we fully acknowledge they are two completely different characters who happen to both be named Bumblebee. You know, it's like comparing like the 90s Peter Pan on Fox Kids to the Disney Peter Pan. They come from the same source material, but they are dramatically different characters, and it's just a matter of preference which one you enjoy. These days, they try to split the difference to mixed results. Transformers 1 Bumblebee tried to make him a comic relief character and tried to make him more kid appealing, which leans more to the original Bumblebee. Misses the mark though, and they still try to pattern him as like an action character, like an actual fighter. I think Prime got the best blend of the two, you know, because he keeps this kind of roundish aesthetic. He is very much a movie style though, with the front car chest and all that. I feel like the bleep bloop kind of made it hard to connect to him, but other than that, yeah, like we see blends every now and then. Sometimes they work, but that is just for the sake of just mentioning that there are other Bumblebees who kind of don't do either. But these are the two major depictions, the Scout and the Warrior, and that is what I would like you to debate today. If you look in the description of this video, you will find a link that will let you go vote. So please go do that. It's a click. It's a couple clicks and you're done. Not a big deal. Don't have to sign up or anything. And I will tell you the results later on in the next debate video where we get to discuss the results. So please feel free to go do that. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.